Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bibliophiles, the show on AADL TV, where we take a few moments to discuss a new book topic each time, where we each pick a different selection on one specific topic. My name is Amanda, and with me, as always, is Christopher and Lucy. And this week, we are discussing books that have a name in the title. Kind of fun. There's a lot to pick from. Lucy, what did you bring for us today?
Well, there were a lot to pick from, as you said, but I decided to look in the stacks and stacks of books that I have in everywhere, unread, and I found a book. This came out in 2021, and it is called Vera. It is by Carol Edgarian, and this book was such a surprise. I had no idea what to expect, and I loved it. So the book is being told by this woman named Vera. She's looking back on her life, and in the story, she is a 15-year-old in San Francisco in 1906, in April. So if you know anything about San Francisco history, on April 18th, 1906, they had a huge earthquake and then an ensuing fire. So the story is right on the cusp of that earthquake. The earthquake happens pretty much in the beginning of the story, and it goes from there. San Francisco is kind of a character in this book, which is really cool. Even though it's 1906, there's still familiar places like Pacific Heights and the Marina and Nob Hill. And so you can picture those places if you've been there, but then also trying to picture like a horse pulling a carriage up and then down those hills. You're thinking like, how does that happen? And you learn how it happens. It's not easy, but Vera is the illegitimate daughter of a woman named Rose, who is this notorious madam of like the most ritzy bordello in town. And Rose gave her to this woman, Maury, who's a Swedish woman, and to take care of, because Rose couldn't take care of a daughter and didn't want to. Maury has a daughter named Pi, and Maury and Pi are sort of like Vera's family. Most people think they're her actual mother and sister. Rose pays for the family to exist. She pays for the whole arrangement, and then a couple times a year she has Vera come visit her in the middle of the night. Vera has to get dressed up, so Vera knows everyone in the bordello, but she's not really close to her mom at all. And so this is sort of the setup, and then we have the earthquake, and the story is really about the rebuilding and this handful of characters that kind of come together and the world they create afterwards. There's this Cantonese butler, Rose's butler, named Tan, and he and Vera are sort of enemies, but they have to start to work together to maintain what Rose had built and to take care of Rose. Rose gets injured, and then there's all these women who worked in the bordello who are they're sort of like Rose's other daughters. They're kind of orphaned in that way. So they're part of this cobbled together family. And Vera, who's 15, is sort of like the de facto leader of them all. She's got a lot of grit. She's got a sailor's mouth, and she's feisty, and she's unconventional, and she just gets stuff done. And there are some real life characters in the book, like the indicted mayor of San Francisco at that time was a man named Eugene Schmitz. And this earthquake actually kind of saved him from his indictment because he had to help rebuild. There was an opera singer named Enrico Caruso. So it's just this really great character-driven book with these wonderful characters. It's really well written, sort of this piecemeal family, which I love those books. So interesting to see how the city worked in the days right after, when everyone was essentially a refugee, and how they fed each other and took care of each other, and then how they worked to rebuild. And they did have this opportunity to make San Francisco less of this sort of, to remove some of the corruption, and they maybe didn't necessarily do that. But San Francisco at that time was fascinating. So there was just so much about this book that was so surprising to me, and I loved it. I zoomed through it. I couldn't put it down. So I'm so glad that we had this topic, because I don't know, this was in stacks of books and I might not have gotten to it. So I was very pleased with my choice of Vera by Carol Edgarian. Christopher, what did you pick?
Well, I chose, first of all, it sounds like a great book, something I'd really enjoy too. I chose this book Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink, and this is based on the podcast by the same name. So I don't know how much I can say about this book, because part of the fun of the book is reading it and discovering what's really going on. And there are many layers of discoveries that happen throughout the book. What I can say is that Keisha has a wife that has gone missing, and her wife has been missing so long that her friends throw a funeral for her. But Keisha knows that Alice, who is her wife, is not dead. She keeps seeing Alice in the background of news broadcasts, almost like Zelig, if you remember that movie. And so she keeps getting these signals that Alice is not dead. So what Keisha does is she sets across the country, crisscrossing the US, looking for clues. In a truck, she becomes a truck driver. And along the way, she discovers lots and lots of different things. She finds a young runaway that she befriends, and the two of them have several adventures. She finds a blobby bunch of serial murderers, and these are really bloodthirsty, horrible characters. And then she discovers conspiracy upon conspiracy. So there is so much going on, and the reader is really puzzling out what could be happening in this, but you get most of your questions answered by the end of the book. A few things I loved about this book: I loved all the language that Joseph Fink used to describe these monsters. That was a really evocative part of the book for me. Also, I loved the relationship between Keisha and Alice. Most of this is told in flashback, and it's really sweet and charming to read about how they met and fell in love. And I really like the focus on Americana and these kind of weird roadside attractions across the US, and what happens in this weird mental state, kind of driving alone at night on a weird, lonely highway. The whole book has some kind of interesting contemporary political overtones and almost some religious overtones. So there's really a lot packed in here. It's probably not for everyone, but it was a quick, fast read and really fun. So that is Alice Isn't Dead by Joseph Fink. Amanda, what did you pick?
We've had two very different books so far. The book I chose was on my stack for a little while, and I grabbed it for this. The book is called The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin, and it's not new. The book was published in 2014, and I think I added it to my list maybe last year. But it is the story of the life of A.J. Fikry. He is, I think, in his 30s. He owns a bookstore on a small island, and he is a bit of a curmudgeon. He's cranky. He has very particular tastes in books and most things in his life. He's also a pretty recent widower, and he is having a hard time just with the day-to-day. But his day-to-day is shaken up when a few different things happen around the same time. There's a new book rep that comes around that is different than the old rep. The old rep has passed away, so he has a new book rep to deal with who doesn't know his tastes, and he has to reform that relationship. His prized possession is a book. It is called Tamerlane by Edgar Allan Poe. It gets stolen, and so he is in a panic about that. And then a mysterious surprise falls into his lap. So he has this combination of things. They end up altering the course of his life. And so the book kind of spans his life. It's not a perfect book. It's not a particularly new and exciting premise. I was drawn to the book because it's a book about books, which is fun. And I actually listened to it on audio, and on Libby, it's only about 7 hours, which is like a really great length for an audiobook. And I found it really quick. I think I listened to it in 2 different sittings, and I actually sat down and just listened to it instead of multitasking. I just found the narrator really engrossing. The voice of the narrator is very calming and soothing, and I just really enjoyed sitting with A.J. Fikry and the other characters that are. There's a police there. There's his sister-in-law of his passed away wife. There's a love interest. There's just this cast of characters that come into his life, and I thought it was really interesting, and I just had a lot of fun with it. I had a good time with it. It's not groundbreaking, original, but I liked that it was about books. I had that syrupy, heartwarming, like bookish charm to it. And the end, it wrapped up this whole like love of books and what a book in somebody's hand can do and where it can take you. And I was just like lapping that part up. And so I was just like having a little sob fest about how amazing books are by the end of it. So that is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Does anybody have any other comments on books with names in the title? Nope. All right. Well, that is it for us this week. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have books with names in the titles that you would like to recommend or suggest, if you click the link below, it'll take you to the library's website and you can leave a comment there. Or if you have other books you want to read or tell us about, please do so. We love hearing what you have to say. So that's it for us this week, and we'll see you next time.